Hello.
Few days back we met, right? But few days back you came here, right, for inquiry, I think. Yeah. Name is? Hmm. PCM? So, yeah. Can introduce yourself, name, college, graduation, about your experience with UPSC. You're done with your coaching? UPSC? From? ఆడియో ఫైల్ ఉంది, ఆడియో ఫైల్ వస్తుందా? Cancel. Okay. So initially, we'll discuss about the importance of this optional PSIR and its relevance to other subjects like ethics, essay, and then we'll have a brief discussion on the optional and its contents, and then I'll take one topic, couple of topics like justice, the theory of state, etc. So coming to the importance of the optional PSIR. So you might have heard about this, people saying that in UPSC, the three things are important, that is your etc. essay. So coming to the importance of the optional PSIR. So you might have heard about this, people saying that if you can master these three things are important, that is most of the times you will be ending up in getting. So coming to the importance of the optional. So in regard to mastering ethics essay about this, the thing that is which is interlinked to all these things is a good optional. If you take a good optional which has connections with essay and ethics, then it becomes easier for you to master the core of UPSC. These three things are the core of UPSC. Why generally people, when they say that you have to master ethics, essay, optional, what is their point? What is their perspective? Anyone? Why do rankers or any senior would say or tell you that you have to master essay, ethics and optional before you go on to other subjects? Means? Okay, anything else? Why people say, for example, apart from that we have GS 1, 2, 3, here we have combinedly 4 papers, here 3 papers, but people then say that you have to master them before mastering others. Why? Not too vast, syllabus is not too vast, okay. Anything else? So the reason is that, of course, one point is syllabus is not vast, but that is not the major point. The major point is you can get the maximum marks out of these marks. Essay you can score, what is the maximum marks? 150, 160 is also possible in essay. Ethics, 140s, 130 plus, and optional, if you have good command, you can get around these days 280, 300. Earlier it was more than 300, but these days it is 280. So that is, each paper is giving you 140 again. That is not possible in other papers. GS1 these days it's not possible. GS1 maximum is earlier 100, it was more than 300, but maximum these days 100, 105, 3 maximum 90, 95. So when you look at these 7 papers which constitutes your UPSC mains, the focus is all on these 4 papers, essay, optional and your ethics. And one more thing about this is, it is not just there are 4 papers, these are 3 papers. The thing is, all are interrelated if you integrate them. If you integrate your optional into essay and ethics, all are interrelated. In that integration comes the importance of PSIR. Understand this. In that integration of essay, ethics and optional comes the importance of PSIR. Otherwise, if you say, for example, if you take maths or say anthropology or say philosophy, which are not much integrated into the essay and ethics, there your complete effort will be on something else, anthro, maths, you have to separately give time apart from ethics and essay. Sociology, see, we'll see all the optionals do have some amount of integration. Even PubAd has some amount of integration. Philosophy has some amount of integration. Anthropology has some amount of integration. Sociology also has some amount of integration. But the importance of PSIR is that it has deep integration with essay and ethics. That is the difference. If you have to compare it with sociology, sociology may be integrated to the extent of, if you read sociology or study sociology, your GS may be around 100 marks will be benefited from GS1. And in essay, maybe sometimes, if our luck favors, maybe a question can come on essay in regard to women empowerment, which is also you will study in your sociology. In ethics, maybe couple of questions in regard to society and ethics, maybe 10 marks. That is the amount of integration for sociology. But you cannot imagine the amount of integration for PSIR with essay ethics and with paper 2 and 3. So, when we put PSIR at center and think about ethics, about essay, about your GS1, about your GS2, little bit, not very much, but even in PSIR there is a unit called economic development, etc. Agricultural reforms are there. So even in PSIR there is a little overlap on your GS3. So you see, this is GS4, this is GS1, 2 and S. Now let's see the integration, how much deep this integration is. When you study PSIR, whether it will help you in GS1 and how much it will help you in GS1. In GS1, you know what are the topics? History, society, geography. History only, it is part of history, geography, society. So in PSIR, paper 1, part B, there is couple of topics like 3 units on history, where you have to read the approaches to Indian history and you have to read some of the aspects of Indian history. That is, if you read PSIR properly or if you read GS1, both are integrated and interrelated. It will help you to the extent, at least to the extent of 30 marks from history perspective. Then come to society perspective. Even society is also there in PSIR. Two units are there in regard to caste, society, etc. So even in GS1, again society part is also helping you. Coming to paper 2. Paper 2, I would say 80 to 90% of paper 2 is integrated into your PSIR. Total Indian constitution, polity, international relations, social justice, except some topics of governance. In paper 2, you have topics like constitution, polity, governance, social justice, IR. Total constitution polity will be covered in your paper 1 part B. Governance not very much. Social justice and international completely covered in your PSIR. So if you read PSIR, that is why you see whoever takes PSIR, if you read good enough in regard to PSIR, you will end up getting more than 100 in paper 2. And the good thing is you are not even putting a lot of time on paper 2, except maybe the current affairs integration, except that you don't read much. So that is how it is integrated to paper 2. Paper 3 not much, but couple of things, land reforms, economic development, etc. The basic concepts, etc. You have to read in PSIR. Coming to ethics, again I would say out of 100%, 60-70% of the understanding in regard to ethics again covered in PSIR, because unit 5, unit 6, unit 7 in ethics, that is thinkers, ethics in public administration, probity in governance, unit 1 values, except unit 2, 3 and 4, other units are covered. In PSIR you have to study about values, different values about what is good, what is bad, how state makes policies in regard to what is good to the people. So in ethics also, and you see there is also integration in regard to ethics. Those students who has taken PSIR will generally end up getting good marks in ethics also. Finally coming to essay. See, essay is little bit challenging, but compared to any other student taking any other optional, those students with PSIR has a little edge in essay. And in recent days it is more, because in recent times, last 4 or 5 years, what is happening with essay is that more and more philosophical questions are being asked. There was a question, values are not what society is, but what society ought to be. Understand this question. Values are not what society is, but what society ought to be. This is one of the questions in UPSC essay. I can give you a number of questions like this. For example, real is rational, rational is real. Philosophical, given a statement by Hegel, again, which comes in your PSIR. A society that has more justice is a society that needs little or less philanthropy. Means a society which has more justice is a society that needs little help from someone. Again, coming back to the concepts of PSIR, justice. In PSIR, you will come across different units like justice, equality, state, rights, democracy. All these concepts in paper 1 part A, political theory, are basically nothing but your essay topics. If you go and see the themes of the essay topics from last 20 years, 15 years, you will see these themes coming again and again. Even IR based questions are there, justice based questions are there, state based questions are there, values questions are there. So basically this is the importance of PSIR. If you, of course these days, like you may be ending up like maybe getting around 270, but that 270 is not the exact benefit out of PSIR, because that is helping you in ethics, helping you in essay, helping you in GS2, a little bit in GS1 and 3 also. If you take the overall perspective of the optional, I would say no other optional gives you this much benefit. I have been in this field for last 15 years, 16 years. That is what, yeah. So if you say, that is the reason that it is able to integrate better with other GS papers. So if you say it is vast, mathematics is also vast, and geography is also vast. Sociology comparatively maybe less or little less in the vastness, but yes, PSIR is vast, but it gives you, you should not look at PSIR from the vastness. You should look at PSIR from the comprehensive understanding that it gives you. That is it echoing? Did anyone join? Hello. Sorry. Hello. Sound. So you should look at PSIR maybe it will take a month or 2 months more compared with sociology, but the amount of knowledge, understanding, and the integration that you get from reading this optional, you will not get it from any other option. So see, I'll try to give the perspective of importance of the PSIR. At the end, if you have issues like you want to take other options, you can ask questions. I'll give you the fair analysis of that. I'm just trying to give you the importance of PSIR. It is not that I'm forcing you or basically I'm giving you a fair analysis. End of the day, it is up to you. You will to whether to choose this or not. Okay. So this is the basic analysis of the optional in regard to its integration with other papers. Coming to the optional political science. So coming to the optional political science, 1A, 1B, so 2A, 2B. So first paper, second paper, this is for 250 marks, this is for 250 marks. I think you coming to the paper pattern of UPSC means 1A, 1B, UPSC means so paper 1 they will give you two sections, section A, section B. Section A has first paper 4 questions, second paper section B has 4 questions. 250 marks, this is for 250 marks. Generally, this is section A, this is section B. So out of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is how a question paper will be given in UPSC mains. First question and fifth question are mandatory. You have to compulsorily write first and fifth. Among the remaining questions, you have to take at least one more from the either of the sections and attempt overall. You have to attempt 4 questions. Okay, 5. Yeah, overall 5, at least taking one more from each sections. That is, the chances are that you can write 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Yes, you can write that way, but UPSC says that you have to write one more from each of the sections. That is, at least 1 and 3 from the section A and remaining 3 from the. So at least 2 from each section you have to write, at least 2. You can take 2 from a section and 3 from other section, whatever it may be. So, but in this 1 and 5 are mandatory. Coming to 1A, this is political theory. This is the core of the optional. Why? Because most of the times people spend a lot of time here. Because if you understand this, here in this unit, in this part 1A, you will cover topics like what is the actual, topic name itself is political theory, first unit is political theory. What is political theory? Approaches to political theory, different approaches like normative, philosophical, historical, behavioral, post-behavioral. Like this, you have different approaches to studying political theory. Then you will come across the concept of state. This is central. If you just understand the concept of state, I'll just take you, after this brief conversation, I'll take a topic called state. And then I'll connect this concept of state with every other topic that is there in the paper. You take the concept of state, and then you can connect it with every other unit that is there, every other unit and every other topic that is there in the paper. We'll see different theories of state. What is Plato's version of state, Aristotle's version of state, Hegel's version of state, Marxist version of state, feminist version of state, how a feminist looks at state. What is state? What is government? What is the difference between state and government? What is the role of state in different aspects? What is the role of state in regard to people's rights, democracy and state?
So this includes political thought, right?
Which one?
The state part.
Huh, yes.
So it doesn't include Indian political thought also?
Yes, we do study about Indian political thought in regard to Gandhian perspective, Arthashastra, Kautilya's perspective on state. So we do read about Indian perspective and Indian thinkers' perspective on the concept of state. And then we'll see about the concept of justice. What is justice? Entitlement theory of justice, Robert Nozick's version of justice, and Rawls' theory of justice. How Rawls gives a theory of justice which is countered by many, and even Amartya Sen, and how Amartya Sen counters Rawls' theory of justice, or others counter Rawls' theory of justice. Then other concepts like equality, rights, democracy, power, etc. in part 1A. Part 1B is about initial topics, is you will come across about Indian history, approaches to studying Indian history, and then you will start, it is almost like reading paper 2 in your GS. Indian Constitution, fundamental features, institutions, executive, legislature, and then the constitutional bodies, non-constitutional bodies. Okay, you will come across all that in your 1B. 2A is about comparative politics. First 1, 2, 3 units you will study about comparative politics, and then you will study about IR and its theory part. And in 2B you will study about the practical approaches of India's international relations with other countries like India and USA, India, Japan, India, Russia, India, China, and other. These 2B is almost I'm saying current affairs based, but the basics remain same. If they ask you about India-Israel, you should know how India-Israel relations integrate at one point. Of course, we may have some issues with Israel in regard to whether Palestine or other issues, but we are very good friends with Israel. Why, how the global relations are emerging. So in the 2B part, it is almost like current affairs. 2A is about little bit of international theory part and comparative politics. Whatever we have studied here, we will comparative politics in regard to state and other issues. 1B is mostly constitution, polity, bodies, legislature, executive bodies, judiciary, etc. 1A is about political theory. I'll just take a couple of topics. వేరే PDF పెట్టాలి. let's start with this topic called justice. So justice, state. So what is state? How is the concept of justice related to state? What is state? How state has come into existence? Community? Okay. Okay, before getting into that, let's see the origins of state. How has state, can you see, is state visible? Did you ever see the state? But everywhere you come across the word state. Telangana state, Andhra state, India as a state. What are the origins of this state? Hmm. Origins of the state. There is a concept called social contract theory. So, the concept of state comes from this. Social contract theory, initially given by Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and even Indian thinker Kautilya is also associated with this concept of social contract theory. So what is this social contract theory, and how this theory is differentiated, or it's different from each of the thinkers' perspective? How Hobbes look at it, how Locke look at it, how Rousseau or Kautilya looks at it. Let's see the Hobbes version of social contract theory. So during Civil War, Hobbes comes up with this social contract theory. He says that state is an absolute entity which is necessary to address the evil-mindedness of the individuals. So he says that in original state means when people are living in, say, without any community, without any society, without any law, etc., every person is like selfish. He says that in that state of nature, people are like, the life is like, it is short, brutish, poor, nasty, etc., etc. He defines the state of life in the original state in a very bad manner. He basically, his approach towards individual is they are selfish, their people are bad, we all are at war with every other person. So assume that if we are all living in, say, forest, go back to the years, thousands of years back, when people are living in the original state, that is without any state, without any government, without any proper law and order, etc., etc. So Hobbes looks at this state from a very negative perspective, that people are generally selfish, people are nasty, they are at war with every other person. So in that state of nature, where every person, every individual is at war with every other person, then when your life is not very secure, safe, when you are in constant tension in regard to your property, your security, etc., then there is a requirement. Then we all come together and forms a society. That because we are also, even though we are selfish and irrational, sometimes we become irrational also. From that rationality comes an agreement. Let us form a society, let us form a kind of agreement. That agreement is called a social contract between the individuals. In this social contract, among ourselves, we will identify a entity, a powerful entity, which over a period of time becomes a state. So, how come a state came? Because we people gathered together and formed an agreement saying that one among us will become the powerful entity who will ensure safety, security and order in the society. But to get this safety, security and order, it doesn't come without price. What is the price that we have to pay for ensuring or for getting this safety, security? So the price that we paid for us to get this safety, security is the right, we have given up the rights. Now, whatever the state says, we have to follow. If state punishes us with capital punishment, we have to accept. If state kills us, we have to accept us. If state takes anything away from us, we have to accept this. Because we initially, in order to get safety and security, we accepted the authority or the power of the state. Now, whatever the state does, we have to accept. This is Hobbes. Like Hobbes, he represents his state with a monster called Leviathan. It is like sea monster which oversees. It tries to establish land order, but in that you may also leave your rights. Look at the state of North Korea. That is nothing but a kind of state resembling Hobbes' Leviathan or Hobbes' version of state. It is absolute. State is absolute. Absolute means it is not limited. When I am saying that something is absolute, what I mean is that it is without limits. Does Indian state has limits? Do we have limitations on the state? Yes. Does North Korea has any limitations? Generally no. China, you look at the Chinese state. Not as absolutist as North Korea, but it is still absolutist. People generally don't have rights. You can disappear any day and no one questions. You know the famous person, Ali Baba stores, the head of, the founder of Alibaba, Jack Ma. He has commented something on Chinese state. Within a couple of days, he disappeared. And no one has the answer. After a couple of months, he reappeared and became silent. So, when state becomes absolute, people doesn't have rights. But in India, you cannot. India or any Western state, Western democratic states, you cannot imagine this kind of situation. Individuals disappearing, people's rights getting violated. You don't see these kind of things happening in the Western or Indian democracy. But you see this kind of things happening in totalitarian states like Russia. Russia is also a little bit of absolutist. Russia, China, North Korea, etc. Where the state is absolute. This is Hobbes' version of state. That is, state is ultimate. Law is the command of state. Whatever the state, whatever the authority says, that becomes the law. But in India, you cannot say that. Law is not the command of sovereign. Law is not the command of the state. We tried to bring even simple laws like 3 farm laws, but we could not even implement them. We rolled them back. Because in India, you cannot force them. Because India is a democratic state, it is a limited state. It is through the will of the people generally that state functions. So, you cannot have Hobbes' version of state, but the relevance of Hobbes' version of state is that it has examples even today in North Korea, China, Russia, etc. So, where state takes the complete authority and people generally don't have any rights. There are no limitations on the state. And this Hobbes' version of state is supported by a couple of other thinkers like Plato's theory of state or Hegel's theory of state. Hegel even goes to the extent of saying that state is the march of God on earth. So it is so absolutist that state is a symbol, it is ideal, it is the best form, and it is the march of God on earth. When he is saying it is a march of God on earth, people cannot have any other rights or exceptions against the state. And from these theories, whether it is from Hobbes, whether it is from Plato, whether it is from Hegel, people like Hitler have got inspired from these versions from these thinkers, and they tried to make their state the absolutist. And that is why you see the Hitler's outcome has its roots or origins in theories like this, where they give complete authority to the state. Okay. So, but then comes the Locke's theory of state. What is the difference is that Locke's version of individuals is little bit different from Hobbes. Locke looks at individuals as not very selfish, they are good people, they have ethics, they have morals, but there is still everything is good, that life in the original state is good. In original state, people are enjoying, everything is good, there is morals, no one is at war with no one else. Life is good, but there is a problem in that original state. The problem is that there is no security or security to the property. Property is not secure. Everything is good. See, in Hobbes, we are not secure. We are always at war with other person. We are always in tension. That is why we came together and formed a contract, tried to protect ourselves, our rights, or our safety and security. But in Locke, that is not the problem. We are all safe. We are all doing our day-to-day activities without any issue and harm from others. But the problem is, everything is good except our property. Our property is not secure. So, in order to secure the property, and also Locke continues or goes on to say that we don't have a fair interpreter or fair giver of laws, interpreter of laws, or executor of laws. So that is why there is a need to bring a state which can give us fair laws, interpret them, a judiciary is needed, implement them. But Locke puts limitation on the state compared to Hobbes. Hobbes does not put any limitation on the state. State is absolute, state can do anything. But Locke gives a limitation. State can do anything except violation of rights. What are these three rights? Right to life, liberty, and property. So state can do anything except interfering with the rights of the individuals in regard to their life, liberty, and property. So now comes the concept of limited state. Constitutionalism, limited state. Today we see that state, in India at least, in Western democracies we see that state is limited. Limited in the sense that it is not absolute, it cannot do anything it wants to do. You see the Locke's impact or Locke's theory of Locke's impact of Locke's theory on different nations. This is from Locke's theory. USA has incorporated the concept of fundamental rights. From the US Constitution, we have incorporated the concept of fundamental rights. The very concept, part 3 in the Constitution, fundamental rights, the right to life, liberty, and property. Actually, today we don't have right to property as a fundamental right, but in original Constitution we were having right to property as our fundamental right. But because of various other reasons, we were forced to take that right from the fundamental rights and put it as some legal right or a constitutional right under Article 301. Why? Because there again, that is a different story. Why we have to remove property as a fundamental right and put it as a constitutional or a legal right. But in original Constitution, it was fundamental right. But life and liberty today also they are fundamental rights. So state can do anything except it should not interfere with your right to life, right to your liberty. Of course, there are also some restrictions in regard to your liberty also. We will again in this optional we will study about J.S. Mill and his concepts on liberty. To what extent we can have liberty. John Stuart Mill has written a book called On Liberty. It's a very good book. in regard to the extension of your liberty, in regard to your freedom of speech and expression and your freedom of action, etc. So we will come back to those concepts again, but now because of Locke we have got a concept of limited state, where state has some limitations. These fundamental rights, when you read the concept of fundamental rights in the polity, you will read that there are limitations on the state. Basically they are limiting the state instead of expanding it, or instead of letting it expand in different directions. So this is basic two theories in regard to state. Let's see what is state, what is a government. What is a state and what is a government? State is an abstract entity. What are the elements of state? Anyone? There was a prelims question some time back. What is the definition of state? Territory, yeah, 4 elements of state. First, it should have people. People comes first, then territory, then government and sovereignty. So for a state to exist, it should have first a people. See, assume that you are all people. Do you have a state? I mean, don't think from Indian perspective. In general, how can you people have a state when you all people live in a territory? This is Ashok Nagar. Ashok Nagar is your adda. That is your 4 boundaries is your territory. And you are, say you are around 12. So you are living within this territory. And just these 2 aspects do not make you a state. The third aspect is you should have a government. You should have a solid version of state. That is, a abstract version is state. The visible version of state is your government. There should be an institution, there should be a government which implements, which takes decisions. That is your government. You should all have a government. And then you should have sovereignty. That is internal, external. No one should interfere in your internal affairs, and no one should interfere in your external affairs. Of course, there are threats to sovereignty in the post World War II era, but we'll see all that in a different unit called sovereignty. Bodin's version, Lusky's version, okay, on sovereignty. Sovereignty is the ultimate power. So, do you have people without state anywhere? You have a Tibetan government living in exile, but Tibet is not a state. How can Tibet become a state? Think about this. You have a Tibetan government in exile. Where is it? Dharmashala. In India, we have a group of people claiming themselves as a government representing the Tibet. But it is not referred to as a state, because even though it has a people, doesn't have territory. Of course, it has territory, but under someone's control. So, for a Tibet to become a state, what it has to has is, it has people, it has territory, but it is lacking these 2 elements. They don't have a government. Of course, they have a government in exile. When they go and establish themselves there, even then they may not become a state in a real spirit, because they don't have sovereignty, because they cannot take their decisions without interference from the China or otherwise. If at all in the final case, people, they go live in Tibet and they form a government and cut themselves off from the Chinese interference, then Tibet can become a state. Understand this, a state. And then this political science is all about this study of state, study of politics, study of power, how one state has relations with other states. So basically political science is about this, studying the concept of state and studying the concept of power politics. Okay. So this is state, and then you have government. How Indian state formed, how Indian government came into existence. Let's see, and then connect it to the other concepts like justice and other aspects. Indian state. When does Indian state came into existence? So we were reading about Indian freedom struggle, etc. We were reading ancient Indian history, medieval Indian history. So from 1885 we formed a Indian National Congress, and then eventually it came in 1947. British left India. That is where we had people, we had a territory, we had now interim governments, and then on August 15 when they left, we have got our own sovereignty. Till then we really don't enjoyed, so we had all these people, territory, some form of governments in the state, in the provinces and in the central, but we never had sovereignty. That is why India was not called a state till that time. You see, 1915, 26, Jan 26, we the people of India having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, secular, socialist, secular, democratic republic state. So our state has some adjectives, that it is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. And then you see the elements or the aspects given in the Constitution of India. Then it goes on to say that we give to ourselves justice, social, economic, political, equality of status and of opportunity, fraternity, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, and then other things. So all these aspects, whether it is state, justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, assuring the fraternity and dignity of the individuals. You look at the preamble of the Constitution, it is nothing but your syllabus. Justice, social, economic, political. Let's see the concept of justice. What is justice? What are different versions of justice? What is Rawls' theory of justice? What is the relation between justice and state? And other concepts like equality. Is there any relation between equality and justice? Is there any relation between equality and liberty? Is there any relation between justice and democracy? Justice and rights? So, we started with the concept of state. Then, in regard to understanding or in the process of understanding state, we have come across a word called justice. How? Because we, in our preamble of the Constitution, when we are forming a state, we have mentioned in our preamble that we will assure justice or give justice to our individuals. What kind of justice we will give? Justice, social, economic and political. Let's now connect justice and state. And then try to connect it with concepts like equality, liberty, democracy, rights, and thinkers. Can anyone give the definition of justice? Justice. What is her name? Joshna. Justice. You all, at least those of you who are done with PCM, you might have come across this word justice. సరే తెలుగు is fine, right, everyone? తెలుగులో ఏమంటారు justice? తెలుగులో ఏమంటారు justice? తెలుగులో you don't understand Telugu, so then I'll limit myself to English. న్యాయ, dharma. Is dharma related to justice? Is niti related to justice? We don't have exact word for justice in Indian context, whether it is in Hindi, Sanskrit, in Telugu. We don't have exact word. What we have is these three words: nyaya, niti, dharma. Almost all of them have some relation with justice. Dharmamga undadam is nothing but justice, with living with justice. Nyayanga undadam is nothing but living with justice. Nitiga undadam is nothing but justice. But they are not exactly related. Dharma is mostly related to your ethics. But ethics is also interrelated with the concept of justice. Where there is ethics, where there is rightness, where there is fairness, where there is righteousness, there you have justice. But exactly or equivalent word is nyaya, or niti is also related. Amartya differentiates between niti and nyaya. He calls John Rawls' theory of justice as niti. And his theory of justice, Amartya also has written a book, Idea of Justice. Rawls has written a book, Theory of Justice. To counter the Rawls' theory of justice, Amartya has written a book, Idea of Justice. In his book, Idea of Justice, he has differentiated between nyaya and niti, saying what Rawls was referring is niti, that is procedural justice. What I am propounding is nyaya, that is substantive justice. So what is justice? Justice is fairness. In simple way, you can understand it as fairness. Giving what is due to the people. What is due to you, you should get. That is justice. Proper allocation of goods, primary goods, social goods in the society to different people is justice. Then comes the concept social justice. Do we have social justice? In paper 2 we'll read about social justice. In paper 1 society we'll read about social justice. In paper 3 also we read about social justice, but with a different name. Anyone? What is the name of social justice in GS 3? In paper 3 we call it as inclusive growth. That is nothing but your social justice. In paper 4 you will read about justice and other aspects of justice. So justice is fairness. Justice is about fair distribution or allocation of goods between the people. Then now in regard to this fairness, fair allocation of goods and services among people, how will you ensure that there will be fair allocation of goods to all the people, to all the sections of the society? What is your suggestion? Don't think from Rawls or Amartya or any other person, just as an individual, as you are also think yourself as a political thinker. Every person, every thinker is a person or an individual. You might be a political thinker and think from that perspective as an individual with intellectual potential. What are your suggestions to ensure fairness in the society? What are your suggestions to ensure there is a proper fair distribution of goods, fair allocation of goods between the people based on needs?
And according to the both of them are.
So see, what's your name?
Sagar.
Sagar. Sagar has pointed out that we should allocate the goods depending on the needs. So if someone says that I need this much, you should give, a state should give. Then is it fair to give things based on need?
Based on need and capability to consume what is needed.
They'll come. See, give fair opportunity. Okay, let's think on this. Is it fair to give to people based on their needs and their capability of consuming them? That is what you are saying. Is it fair in a society? I say I am a very lethargic person. I have a family of 10. None of them works. All of them lives on the state. Now, is it the responsibility of state to provide the goods to these people as they demand, according to their needs? And as Sagar is saying that they all have the, I also means that lethargic person of family of 10 has the capability of consuming. Is it fair to give? Joshna. So how is your version? What is your version of fairness then in regard to distribution of goods? What should be given? How should be given in the society?
Instead of needs, maybe we should consider wants.
Wants.
Because wants are very necessary. And one's want, one's need is someone's want. Like for a richer person's need is the poor person's want.
I think you are confusing. Okay, anyone? Yeah, you.
I think just adding on to what he said, so the government should provide opportunities for the person to work according to his capabilities and then earn whatever goods and services.
So so Sagar was telling about needs, though this comes from a socialist or Marxist version, where they say that from according to according to their need, from according to their capabilities. Like that is, you should give them according to their needs, and they should contribute according to their capabilities. That was Marxist idea, that they should contribute to the society based on their capabilities. That if they can contribute, say, in regard to building a wall or building something, or in any whatever the capability, doesn't matter. They should provide to the state or the society according to their capabilities, and they should get according to their needs. But that, see, generally people are all selfish. Generally, they skip work and they want more. So if you say that they from according to their give according to their needs and take according to their capabilities, generally they don't end up adding anything to the society, but end up taking more from the society. They end up taking from the society. So it may not be fair. So in this discussion in regard to how to ensure fair allocation of goods, social primary goods regarding power and other health, education, etc., to the people, John Rawls comes up with a concept called wheel of ignorance. Understand this concept of wheel of ignorance. So in this wheel of ignorance, John Rawls comes up with this thought experiment. That is, assume that you are all are behind this wheel of ignorance. Wheel ante telusu kada, wheel is like a parda. Wheel of ignorance, and you are all in an original position. What is this original position? Original position is you don't have any understanding in regard to your future possibilities. That is, you don't know whether you will become, in the next coming society, you will become a rich person, poor person. You may end up in a high caste or a high caste or a low caste. You may end up being very healthy. You may end up being very unhealthy. You may end up living in Hyderabad, or you may end up living in a very remote tribal area. So this is an original position where you don't know about your future position. In that original position, when you are behind this wheel of ignorance, that is, you have a parda about your future prospects, You don't know anything. Now you have to think about different principles, different rules, basically about rules. Let's not complicate it, about rules, about our future society. But about this future society, when you are thinking about rules, you should keep that in mind, that you are in an original position, you don't know anything about your future possibilities, and then you should also think about the aspect of justice, what is fair. Then he asked people to think, saying that he comes from a background where he accepts that people are rational. When people are rational, they'll think reasonably, and then he only suggests different principles. First is 1, second 2A, 2B, like this, he'll come up with different principles. As some of you have said, yes, he comes with first principle, that is not equal opportunity. Like he is more, see, in the study of state, in the study of the concept of state, we look at state from different perspectives, like liberal perspective, socialist perspective, etc. So he is coming from that liberal perspective of a state, where he feels that state should give maximum liberty to the individuals. So first principle for the Rawls is that liberty, maximum liberty should be given to each of the individuals. Think about this. How is justice related to the concept of liberty? And how is the concept of liberty related to the other concepts of state, like Hobbes' Leviathan versus liberty? Does Hobbes' Leviathan gives you any liberty? No. Hobbes' Leviathan ends up taking all the liberties from the people. No individual has any freedom. You don't have any rights. But Locke's version of state gives or ends up with giving some, he openly says life, liberty and property. So that is where he comes from, Rawls, and then gives you the first principle, that is every individual in the state, or every individual in this original or the coming state should have complete liberty, maximum liberty, to the extent that it doesn't affect the liberty of others. So you should have maximum liberty. That is your first principle. Second principle is your equality of opportunity. That is every individual should have equality of opportunity. Third principle is something called as difference principles, that the socio-economic inequalities in the society should be adjusted in such a way that they end up benefiting the least advantaged people in the society. That is, he proposes 3 rules in regard to the society. First is every individual should have liberty. Second is every individual should have equality of opportunity. Third is there is something called as difference principles. The socio-economic inequalities, like for example progressive taxation or PDS system or reservation system or anything in the society, should be basically to benefit or to help the least advantaged section of the society. State can make laws or anything which are based on these inequalities, but eventually they should end up helping the least advantaged section of the society. Only if we have these rules in the state, then we can say that there is justice in the society. Now try to understand this from the Indian perspective. He says that the policies or socio-economic inequality should be adjusted to benefit the least advantaged sections. You have a PDS system. It is given for everyone. Is it given for anyone? Everyone? No. MG Narega is there. Reservation system is there. Or any progressive taxation is there. For the first 3 lakhs, you will not be taxed. Why? A rich person can say that this is injustice. You are not taxing him, but you are taxing me. Is it not justice? Is it not injustice? You are earning 10 lakhs. Someone is earning only 3 lakhs. State is not taxing this 3 lakhs, a person who is earning 3 lakhs, but state is taxing you if you are earning 10 lakhs. Is it not injustice? And this is where Robert Nozick comes up. He says, he's from a libertarian background. He comes up with an entitlement theory. And then says, if you are taxing a person who is earning 10 lakhs and not taxing someone who is earning 3 lakhs, this is like a bonded labor. See, I am earning 10 lakhs. In this 10 lakhs, state is taking 1 lakh as a tax. Basically what is happening, in this, when state is taking 1 lakh from my 10 months salary, assume, just I am roughly telling you, 10 months I worked, I got 10 lakhs, 1 lakh I paid to the state as a tax. Basically what state did is, 1 month of my salary is taken by the state. Ardhamaitunda? 1 month of my salary is taken by the state as a tax. What is that 1 month of salary is nothing but I am being forced as a forced labor. Means I am forced to work for the state. I was not paid. For 1 month, I became a forced labor and government exploited me. It is not justice. This is what Robert Nozick says in regard to difference principle given by, say, Rawls. So, when you have these 3 principles, liberty, equality of opportunity, difference principle, you can see them in your in our Indian constitution, Indian principles, Indian policies. We have liberty principle under Article 19, but may not be as complete as much, but in Article 19 too, we also have reasonable restrictions which limit our ability to enjoy our liberty in regard to maybe freedom of speech and expression. There are certain limitations. In regard to equality of opportunity, yes, we do have equality of opportunity. Then third principle is difference principle. Yes, in India also we have this difference principle where you have socio-economic inequalities adjusted to help the least advantaged sections of the society. So this is Rawls' theory of justice. Now try to equate it with other concepts like equality. So, is there any relation between justice and equality? Are they complementary or are they contradictory? Complementary or contradictory? Sagar, equality and justice, equality and liberty, the interrelation between equality, liberty and justice. Complementary. When you have equality, then you have justice. But there are also thinkers who say that if you want to have real justice, it can come only through inequalities. What is your explanation to that? There are libertarian thinkers like Nozick, etc., Sandel, etc. They say that if you really want to have justice, this can come only when you have inequalities in the society. See, generally, think about the concepts of liberty and equality. There is a liberty. Every individual has the freedom to do whatever they want to do. When every individual has the liberty or freedom to do whatever they want to do, then the actual outcome of that is inequality. Because every individual, based on their capabilities, they will work. Every one of us has equal amount of time. But some people use it better, some people waste it. Eventually, all of them will not be equal. So when you have liberty, then the normal or the actual outcome of liberty is inequality. But when you try to promote equality, then you have to suppress liberties. Understand this concept. when you have to artificially bring equality in the society, that every one of them should live in a same house, every one of them should have equal salary, every one of them, every one of us should have same food, every one of us should use same kind of car. Is it not restricting my liberty? So one version says that equality and liberty are contradictory. When you try to promote equality, basically it gets into violating the concept of liberty. But when you try to promote liberty, the actual outcome of promoting liberty is inequality. Okay. So, but one that who says that it is contradictory, they are liberals, libertarians. Those who say that they are complementary, they are communists or socialists, egalitarians. So these are two versions in regard to equality and liberty, but eventually if you want to have justice, there should be balance between liberty and equality. It is not like which one overtakes the other. Yes, there should be equality. Without equality, you people see, from the Indian history, you just look at Indian history, how the continuous perpetuation of inequalities, whether it is social, economic, political, etc., has eventually led to injustice in the system. You take the case of untouchability, the Dalits not being equally treated in regard to their social, economic, political aspects. They were, in regard to social, they don't have the voice, they don't have the access. Political, they don't have the power. Economic, they don't enjoy, or they are not allowed to enter into some of the economic ventures or the opportunities which they wanted to. So at every point you obstructed or you created problems in regard to their equality, eventually leading to injustice. Of course, that is also affecting their liberty also. So all these concepts of liberty, equality, justice are interrelated concepts. For you to have justice, social justice in a society, you should have balance between liberty and equality. And then what is the relation between the concept of democracy, justice, equality and liberty? What is the best form of the government which will ensure justice, that is to ensure equality and liberty? Which form of government do you think can promote better justice in the society? We have, what are the different forms of government we have? Monarchy, theocracy, democracy, meritocracy, etc., etc. But generally we see theocracy, monarchy, theocracy and democracy. Monarchy you see in some states, example, Saudi Arabia. Koncham dagi. UK is not, that is constitutional monarchy and it's a democracy, is basically democracy, but Bhutan, yes. Monarchy has a special feature that the rulers have lineage. The head of the government, heredity is needed. You see Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin MBS. There is a lineage, there is a hereditary. So, only couple of states have monarchy, maybe that Rome, Saudi Arabia, maybe North Korea. So, monarchy is a one-man rule where there is a hereditary connection between the previous ruler and the present ruler. If that continues, then you call it as a monarchy. But Russia may not be a monarchy because there is no relation between the earlier ruler and this ruler. If he is a continuity, there is a father, son and grandson, then you say it as a monarchy. So there is one monarchy, there is theocracy, kind of Iran, a little bit of theocracy you see. Pope, whereas like the Pope ruling a small region, that is Vatican City, theocracy is there. These are the two examples. Maybe little bit of Saudi Arabia is a combination of theocracy and monarchy. So these are theocracies. Head of the government is basically a religious leader, that is theocracy. And the third form is your democracy. If you compare monarchy, theocracy and democracy, where do you see the possibility of justice? Democracy. Because you see Iran, you see other areas, generally people see, when I'm asking for justice, it is about rights, it is about liberty, it is about equality. Basically, justice is all about ensuring the individual to reach his ultimate potential. There should not be any impediment, there should not be any restrictions on me in regard to my opportunities, in regard to my rights, in regard to my liberties or anything else. When every individual in a society is given that kind of possibility, then automatically justice is the outcome of that society.
But to ensure justice, sometimes we give up equality, like in the case of solutions. We are ensuring justice to the lower caste people, we are not giving.
That is what I am saying. Slide it. Slide. So, Joshna is saying that in order to ensure justice, we have to give up on equality. Yeah, sometimes we have to. That is why I am saying there is a balance between liberty and equality, because that is our Article 14 itself has equality before law and equal protection of laws. Equal protection of laws is nothing but treating equals equally, unequals unequally. So equality in itself has a concept of justice. Equality doesn't mean that every one of you will be treated equally. Who among you who are equals, I'll treat them equally. If there is some person who is disabled, I'll not treat them equally with you, because I'll give them a special privilege. So equality itself has a concept of justice in it. Yes, that is what I'm saying. We have to balance liberty, equality, eventually to ensure justice in a society. But that justice, the concept of justice, can be realized only in few forms of the government, not in every form, like autocracy, totalitarian governments. You cannot ensure justice. You cannot have real justice in, say, Russia. You want to become a ruler, you really want to do something good for the society, next day you may disappear. Okay, that is not justice. So this concepts, everything is interrelated. If you take a concept of state is related to your justice, state is related to your equality, state is related to liberty, state is related to democracy, state is related to rights, state is related to power, state is related to theories of different political thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, Mill, Marx. So like this, everything is interrelated. So I'll just, this is basic concepts that we have discussed. I'll just now give you a brief on what you can expect from this optional classes comparative to others or other coaching institutions. So what you can get from this is like for every unit, I'll give you a notes which is comparatively comprehensive, but at the same time not very lengthy, which eventually exhausts you. Okay, so it is comparatively comprehensive, not burdening you with a lot of information. And when I am saying comparatively comprehensive, that it means it covers all the PYQs, that were asked till now. The notes covers all the PYQs. At the same time, I'll give you first complete comprehensive notes, then the first version, the first summary of that, and the second summary of the notes. And along with that, I'll provide you, for example, let's take justice or I didn't bring the total notes, but so for every unit I have this is a summary of the notes. Actually, I have a PDF which covers your comprehensive PYQ based notes, and then a first summary where you will have kind of easy reference and a little bit interesting so what is political philosophy, political science, political thought, then evolution of political theory, how it evolved over a period of time, different approaches, philosophical, historical, then you have normative approach. This is in this unit, this normative approach is one of the important question, and then this is till World War II, you will have these traditional approaches to the state political theory. Then you have contemporary post-World War II behavioral approach by Truman, Easton, and then post-behavioral again by Easton, then systems approach, and then feminist, and then decline and resurgence of political theory. Like this, every unit you will have a proper first PDF which covers comprehensively the PYQs, and this is the first summary, and then you will have the other summary. This is a summary of the earlier notes, like kind of main notes, first summary, second summary, where it is little bit for a quick revision. You will have same thing but with very to the point, where you have to like remember the crux of the things. So like this, and you will also have interesting podcasts on every of the topic.
About political theory and how do these terms actually relate
So
to
for every unit you will have a kind of podcast which is
political theory at its core.
Which is not generic podcasts, like these are very specific to our notes, like whatever you read, the main PDF and then the summaries, based on that only we are developing these podcasts. So it is not like it is you read something else and then you will hear something else in the podcast. Both are interrelated. Whatever your notes is, that based on your notes you will have podcasts where two people will discuss.
Is concerned with those big ethical or normative questions, the oughts of political life. It explores the ends and means of political action. Why should you obey the state? How should rewards be distributed fairly in society? What are the true limits of individual liberty? It's fundamentally about that objective search for a better society, aimed to replace mere.
So every unit you will have these kind of one main PDF, first summary, second summary, and podcasts on each of the topics. So this is what you can expect. And comparatively to the other famous political science optional coachings elsewhere, where they'll spend a lot of time on initially think what is happening elsewhere is generally they spend a lot of time on thinkers, Western political thought, Indian political thought, almost 2 months, 3 months they'll spend there only. And when they come to the other topics, they'll just summarily dismiss that we have anyway referred them in the thought, so we'll not discuss that. My approach will be unlike them. What I'll do is, we will also start with political thoughts, Plato, Aristotle, and then we will go. But no, I'll not take that much of time discussing these thinkers, because my approach would be, again when we discuss justice, again when we discuss equality, again when we discuss the state, again when we discuss democracy, we'll come back to the thought, we'll come back to the thinker, and then integrate it. Instead of at a time discussing the thinkers in a comprehensive way, and at latter point of time saying that we have anyway covered these concepts in the thinkers, let's move on. I'll not do that. I'll cover thinkers fastly, and then while discussing the other concepts, we will again come back and discuss the versions of the thinkers in each and every topic. So that makes you, because generally what happens when you come with not much depth in the concepts, if I take 2 months, 3 months teaching you thinkers, most of the things go above your head. And when we read other concepts, if I say that we have covered them in the thinkers, then it becomes useless. So my approach will be, I'll just give you a basic aspects of the thinkers which are necessary at that point, and then again we'll come back. For example, there's a Plato. When we are reading Plato, we'll read about Plato's version of knowledge, Plato's theory of ideas, Plato's version of state, Plato's theory of justice. Okay. So again when it comes in justice, again what is justice and Plato, justice and Aristotle. So our approach will be the second model. So if you have any doubts, you can ask. Exactly we cannot predict, but 4 to 5 months. Yeah. Like you can get it prior only. I'll just by the starting only I'll keep giving you notes. So it's not like at the end. I'll give you already. It's prepared. So I'll give you, and then see, basically whatever you read we'll discuss, and then you will have summary, you will have podcast. So basically in this 4-5 months you will get a comprehensive overview of the concepts. Only thing is, see, in market what is happening is, wherever you take the optional coaching, and eventually you will end up with reading one material only. You all know which material that is. But you can keep that as a reference, because even all the concepts that are discussed will be integrated into our notes also. So and while making my notes only, I am making sure that this notes covers all of the PYQs. Even if it was asked once, for example, the post-behavioral approach or systems approach is there, even that will be covered in the notes, even if it is asked once. Only thing is, you should have confidence in the notes, and then repeatedly read it, revise it couple of times, 3 times, 4 times, then eventually you will become good at the concepts. Okay. So if you don't have any doubts, we'll end it up. And of course, I am in regard to my background with UPSC, I've given 7 mains. I've got one of the top scores in essay ethics. So that insights in regard to UPSC and handling it, you will get that as a additional advantage. You may be getting 7 mains, 4 interviews, almost nearer, but because of different reasons could not clear. But I've got one of the best scores in essay 149, ethics 135. Okay. So that kind of insight in regard to writing the optionals, writing the answers, that you will get as a part of the coaching. So thank you. See, paper 2 also I'll take, but polity part little bit, maybe other faculty will come.